is the Investor Connect podcast program. This is Hall T. Martin. I'm the host of the show, in which we interview angel investors, venture capital, private equity, family offices, and many other investor groups for startups and growth companies. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, Hall,
Hey,
can you hear me?
Dallas. Yeah, I hear you. You're fine. How's it going there?
It's good. How are you?
Doing good, doing good. It's been a while since we last spoke.
I know it. Years. Been years.
It is, it is. I mean, you were making a film back then in Austin. What was the final title on that thing?
It's called Sightings.
Okay. I remember it came out. I saw the email saying you made the film and you produced it and so forth, but I never heard the full story. How'd it work out?
Yeah, we released it back in 2017. We released it through a kind of a smaller label distributor, and they put it out on demand and sold a few international territories. You know, it got a lot of coverage in kind of the ultra low budget thriller outlets online and pretty well received by those who've seen it. It's still on a path to recoupment as ultra low budgets sometimes go, but it was completed and released, and quite an experience on all fronts from production through distribution. We learned a lot through that process, as you often do on your first film.
I got you. Okay, great. Well, it sounds like you've been doing a lot of other cool things around distribution and so forth. And how's been the ride since?
Yeah, it's been good. Honestly, the release of that film and working with the distribution company and learning that whole process is what motivated us to get involved in that side of the industry a bit, just because the bar for success is set very low. Most lower level distributors have really set the bar low for doing something of excellence when it comes to releasing films. And so we saw an opportunity to get involved in that capacity and just do a better job than what we were seeing, and have spent several years now licensing and acquiring rights to films and series and getting them on platforms that we've established relationships with, and helping producers and rights holders generate additional revenue for films that maybe they've already released in some capacity but aren't maximizing the exposure. And so that's been, I guess we've been doing that for about 4 years now, 4 or 5 years. And we've got a catalog of about 300 titles that we've licensed over that period and have placed them on a variety of services, from transactional to ad supported to streaming. And, I don't know how closely you follow that industry, but, there's new niche services popping up pretty regularly. And so we're always trying to establish accounts with those new outlets and new apps. And if we have content that makes sense for their platform, we deliver that. So that's been a good business operation to generate revenue as we then go out, develop and produce our own projects from the ground up again.
I got you. Okay. So what's your next project then going to be?
Well, currently we're actively working on a kid series that we actually start production in January on the 3rd season of it. So for the last 3 years, since 2021, I've been producing a show called Gus Plus Us with the team at Caster Studios in Dripping Springs. And they developed this original live action kids show, and we produced season 1 independently. So Caster Studios fully financed the first season. We did 13 episodes, and that show is for like 4 to 6 year olds. It's a show for preschoolers, but it's live action with original songs and handmade sets and really cool whimsical locations that we go to. And we shoot the whole thing on the soundstage there in Dripping Springs. And so we produced season 1 independently, and then we ended up licensing season 1 to a new kid streaming service called BentKey. I don't know if you have heard of them.
No.
Are you familiar with the Daily Wire? at all?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay, yeah, so the Daily Wire launched a kids streaming service,
Uh,
and so they licensed season 1, and then they partnered with us on season 2 and fully financed season 2 and now season 3 as well. So, we've been in pre-production for season 3, the back half of 2024, and we start shooting in January.
I guess you. Okay. So
Yeah.
how much you trying to raise right now for the next project?
Well, so that show's fully funded by BentKey. We do that budget for that's about 200 grand an episode. So season 3 is a little over 2.5 million that we've got for that to make that show this season. And then for the next film, so we've got a couple of different films at various stages of development that we want to push forward. But one right now that has what seems to be the most amount of steam is the one I reached out to you about, which is this story around the origin of Hobby Lobby and David Green and the Green family and how he started that company, how he's grown it to what it is, and some of the unique things they've done in the philanthropic world with their success and money and everything. Are you familiar with the Greens or Hobby Lobby?
Yeah, very much so. This is a
Okay,
great story, and it's a faith-based group, and lots of history there as well with it. Have you talked to them about it? Are they on board with it, or is it something you're doing on your own?
Yeah, so we've reached out to them. We've gone and met with David, and we've presented our approach to it to the family, and where it's at right now. They're very interested, and we haven't formally secured any life rights or book rights or anything yet. But we've had conversations with them, and they're into the idea. And what they've essentially granted us at this point is they've given us verbal permission to go out and start formulating a team from the producing side, writing, directing, get, kind of a list of who we want to be the ones to tell this story, and then bring that back to them to present as an option and get their approval on who that creative team and producing team is, so that we can then secure those rights to formally get a script commissioned, start pitching to, studios and distributors. Because we would want this to be more of a theatrical release. We think, the audience is there for this story, particularly with their impact and network. We think there's the marketing opportunity lends itself to more of a theatrical release for this story.
What kind of budget would you think that would be?
Well, the number we're trying to keep it around is like that 15 million mark. So which is kind of where like some of the other movies in this genre land, like the Ordinary Angels or Unsung Hero, some of those movies that came out recently in the faith-based audience, they're like in the 15 to 20 million range. At the high end, like I don't know if you saw the movie Reagan. I think that hit a $25 million budget. That I think that would be too high for what we want to do here. So somewhere in that 15 to 20 million is what the ultimate production budget would likely be,
Mhm.
is what we're anticipating.
And for investors putting money in, what do you tell them would be a return on that sort of thing? That's a very specific niche in the market that I'm not that familiar with on what returns are there. And typically the big budgets have either big names attached to it or they have big tax credits attached to it because we're doing it in
Right.
Canada and other places. Are there any tax credits involved here?
Yeah, a couple of things. So the name aspect will be a huge component to this. The Green family has expressed that they only want to be associated with something that is top caliber, which means from both behind the camera and in front of the camera. So our intention would be, if we're going to make, a film at that budget level, it would need the name talent that would justify that. And then also from a tax credit standpoint, we'll likely be shooting this in Oklahoma, which is where their headquarters are anyway. And Oklahoma has some significant tax incentives for shooting there. So, we'll definitely tap into both of those things. But from an investor standpoint, at this stage, the only thing we are currently exploring would be development financing. And that structure is a little bit different than like your typical production financing for an investor. So what the development side would fund is our ability to commission a script, our ability to attach talent, and the financing associated with all of those aspects. And typically on a theatrical film at this level, that funding is recouped at the greenlit stage, meaning, let's say hypothetically we are able to bring on investors for say, half a million, and we raise
Okay.
$500,000, and that covers our cost of getting a script written, several drafts of the script, covering some fees for agencies to attach talent, both writer, directors, actors. And so we get our package, including the script, that allows us to then go pitch to studios that would finance the full budget of production. And so once they greenlight the full budget and us go make the film, the investors who funded that development financing would recoup from a line item in the budget of the film. So there would be an actual line item that covers all of those costs and expenses, plus typically like a 20% return on top of that. And then that's how they're paid back and recouped. So it wouldn't even necessarily be dependent on, waiting till the movie gets finished and released or anything like that.
So out of a $20 million budget, how much would go for the development piece?
We're anticipating like $500,000
Okay.
would be what we need for development.
Okay. You found any interest for it so far?
You're the first like full conversation I've had around financing specifically. I'm working on a call with an organization called Wedgwood Circle, which is based out of Nashville, and they specifically do kind of investor financing for things like this in the entertainment space with faith-based projects. And so they're one I'm scheduling next week to have a phone call with. So yeah, we're just having these conversations, and to be honest too, the conversations at this point is really just to kind of gauge the interest and start to explore the avenues we would go, because like I said, we haven't formally gotten the rights from the family yet. And what we need to be able to do is, we obviously have to have those rights before we can go hire a writer or anything like that. But what we want to be able to do in part of our presentation to them is say like, hey, here's the writers we're going to approach. Here's the actors, directors we want to talk to. And then here's the things we have in motion for the development of the financing. Because one of the things the Greens have asked is they want to make sure we're not asking them for money to fund this. And so
Right.
that was one of the first things they brought up. So we want to just be able to have the conversations going, starting to gauge like, hey, are there people out there that if we're able to secure these rights formally, is there funding that we can then put in place to push it forward to the next steps?
Okay. But any initial investors you have in mind to go after with this yet or no?
Like individuals, no. I'm kind of starting more at the level of like what Ian is like, like groups that are looking for unique investments. So yeah, I haven't had like personal one-on-one conversations with an individual potential financier.
Okay. We work with several faith-based groups, and we've actually helped some of them launch here in Austin. And so there is a group of people that are in the community that I think would support it from that point of view, investors. The thing you might want to think about is, are you familiar with luminary dinners?
I think I've heard that phrase before, but
It's often used in the nonprofit space, but I find it can also be used here where you have somebody that donates money to a nonprofit cause and you throw them a luminary dinner where we get all of their family, friends, colleagues, cohorts, and so forth to come out and thank them and honor them for the work that they're doing in the community because they're funding these nonprofit activities. And sometimes these are guys that have been around for a long time and have done a lot of philanthropy and so forth. And, certainly the group you're talking to is in that category. And so
yeah.
one approach to this is to go after people that know the family very well and they want to honor them and they want to help them and they believe in this project and they're willing to put some money up for the development project. And you get the right talent, the best talent and so forth. And the family doesn't, they don't usually do it themselves, but people that work with the family, people that know the family and people support the family, they're the ones that would put the money up for this. And you do it through a series of luminary dinners. You're going to go out and have these events where you bring the family out and you talk about the work they've done and talk about, we want to create a film for it or raising money for the film. And those who come to the dinner are they're getting educated on the process and the project. They're meeting some of the people that you're talking about. So an event-based approach like that would work well here because it's really built around those who want to support the family. And that
Mhm.
usually is their circle, and then one level out, then another level. And then after a while, you get enough money and momentum going that you just start going to all the faith-based centers around the country. Here in the South, there's quite a few, and you add on to it. And so you can raise quite a bit of money through that process, but it's an event-based approach. And we've
Yeah.
done we work a lot with events, so we kind of know how to put them on in general. But like I say, I've been noticing that luminary dinners were working for-profit activities from time to time
Mm.
because it was built around a personality or an individual or a group that had a real branding, and there's a community that supports that brand. Well, that I don't want to call it crowdfunding. Crowdfunders are putting $500 credit card clicks, and we're not looking for that. We're looking for
Mhm.
250, 500K checks to come and support this development effort to get it up to the 500, and then it gets bigger after that. So that's one approach you might want to think about. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. So you're saying the like members of the Green family would attend these events, and then that's who you, and then they're kind of like the draw to bring people in to then donate.
So yeah, the people that know the Greens would come out to honor them because they know them well, they support them, they feel like the Greens have been great for the community and for their service, and they align on the same principles and values and so forth, and they want to focus you putting out the opportunity that we're going to tell their story. We're going to make a quality film, not just a document, but a real theatrical release film, and then people get excited about that and they want to do it. And I've done some film financing in the past, and the two things that get people excited is one, they really understand they believe in the message of the film. In this case, is the family. They believe in that family. And number two, they want to be in the film. And they want to
Mhm.
be a part of that in some way, shape, and form. And so you kind of start working those angles to get the money raised to go do the initial upfront support. Just about every startup, initial money comes from family and friends. And this is a similar thing with Luminary Dinners. You're getting it from friends, not necessarily the family, but friends of the family. And those who know them well are going to come out and support them, and they'll put the money up to build this, get a really quality service. That's the angle. It's not where, do we do it or not, is how well do we do it? And they don't want to see
Mhm.
anything done not well. So they're going to put good money in to get the right people in. And in these Luminary Dinners, what you're doing is bringing out the people that were going to be attached to this project. You're talking about this writer and these people. Well, those guys are coming out and they're talking about their background, and then the investors are meeting with them and they're getting a sense. Well, they have a track record. They're hearing about the track record, and so now they're getting excited about it. So my recommendation is putting a series of Luminary Dinners together to honor them and build the team that's going to be, present the team you're proposing to them. Didn't
Mhm.
say, but we need money for it. We're looking for donations for the money, but it's a for profit. It's not just pure donations. You do get a return on the money when we get to this next level. And then one group knows another group knows another group, and the
Right.
networking effect kind of helps build to the 500K level, at which point it gets greenlit, and then you got the full support of the group behind it. And to be candid, some people, support it because they want to do business with the family, and they're coming in and they're putting money in because they want their to do, foster the relationship for
Right.
business and other reasons. And so they're showing up because this is a great way to get in, is to donate to the family's film that's going to honor what they're doing and their legacy and all that. And then, like I say, they often know other people that will come and do it as well. So that's the concept of a luminary dinner, is to honor people
Mhm.
for what they've done. But I found that that's where, is a good thing. I once asked a person, what makes for a great luminary dinner? The answer is a great luminary. So if you have a really
Yeah.
great luminary, then it's not hard to run these things. And so it sounds like you have a great one already.
Yeah, I mean, they would certainly, I think, be the ones that would draw the type of attendance to one of those. What I'm running through my head is just from my conversations with them and what they've expressed. They've been very clear that they don't need a movie made about them. Obviously, they have their own very clear mission and goals and things they're trying to do with their legacy, and they see how a film could help propel that mission forward. David's getting up in age, and so being able to preserve his life and goals and what they're all about in a film would help in that regard. But I'm wondering, this is the first time I'm thinking out loud here about that specifically, and just if they're going to feel like they could potentially feel like it's still dependent on them to push this forward then, and there may be some reservation on their part in that regard to if they're being asked to actually participate in these events, and if they feel like they're asking others for donations to help them make their movie, that could be a sticking point that I'd have to overcome.
Sure. Well, I think in the end, it's you're really asking for help to build the team, and that's what people luminaries don't pay for their own dinner, but the friends of luminaries pay for the dinner for them. And part of the goal is to honor what they're doing, and one outcome is we want to raise money to go and build run this movie, and so the dinner is for honoring them. The network connections you make at that dinner are what you later follow up to go close funding for the actual movie itself. Because in the process, you'll figure out who's really interested, who really wants to do something, and then when you put the opportunity out there, they come to you saying, "Well, if you guys decide to make that movie, I want to be a part of that. I want to support that."
Mm-hmm.
And so
I see.
it's a two-step. Up front is honoring them, and the after effect is we're finding people that want to be a part of this process and will fund it. And like I
I
say,
see.
the family is never asked to fund their own dinner or what have you, but you would
Mhm.
need to put a series of those together. And then once you have a core group of people there that put money in, 500K is a good number. You then go on the road to all the other outlets where there's interested people that want to support that group as well, and there's now a vehicle that they can jump on board to fund to make it go to the next level. And then, of course, you have to build the rock star team that also attracts money as well. Get the right
Right.
people who've done the right films and films people recognize and heard about. It's in the faith-based world, then it starts to get some momentum behind it as well. So I'm just using the luminary dinner to attract the right people that you want to
I
use to
see.
do the foundational investing.
I gotcha. So you're not necessarily raising money at the dinner. You're not personally. I mean, it may happen, I guess, but you're not like asking for checks there at the dinner.
Then yeah, that's right. No, you're just trying to
Okay.
build a network, and people are giving toasts and roasts and those type of things and meeting each
Mhm.
other, and people love to network with the people they know already. And we want to thank them for the work that they've done. And they've got lots of philanthropy that you highlight. So you're showing off maybe some of your film cred with some videos of things that they have done, and you're getting all of their family and friends to honor them for what they're doing. And then people
Mhm.
that want to work with them, they want to do business with them. They're coming out and supporting that as well. So that's core of Luminary is really, like I say, it's more of a nonprofit thing. You're just thanking people for the work they're done. What comes out of that is a list of people that, could potentially want to invest and take the
I see.
movie forward because they see the vision of it. And what you have to do is show that we have the right team to do that. And the family will sign off on this, and they've got the right track record. And if they've got example films they've already done before, where we're going to make it like that one, that really helps a lot in raising
Mhm.
money as a follow-on stage as well. It does take a little bit of money to do a luminary dinner together. It's a nice dinner, it's a nice
Mhm.
place and all that, but didn't have to be huge. It could be, 40, 50 people, something like that. And if it's people they know, well, it's probably going to be something like that. And then once you
Mhm.
have that core group installed and engaged and so forth, well, then now you have something to build on. Because if these guys came
Mhm.
together and honored them and they really like it and they're now putting some money after it, it may not be all 500, it may be 100, 150, 200, something like that. That again, that's a base to build on versus we don't have anything. Who wants to be first? No one wants to be first. That's the
Of
challenge. That's why
course.
the
Yeah.
upfront part has got to be family and friends that know them very well.
Right. No, that makes sense. That's good to think on. I assume you've hosted these in around Austin before, or
We did one the other day for a group out of Dallas that wanted a faith-based group that wanted to stretch into Austin, and so we ran one of those, and they talked about the work they were doing, and they had some people they knew already in Austin, and then they met a whole bunch of new people they didn't meet before as well. So it is a way to bring people in to support. It was like a luminary dinner to support them in what they were doing. And so, and we help with those. We help put those on. We just have to find people that know them very well, and through various tools you can kind of find out who the key people are, and then you're putting together some material that showcases what work they've done, and it's just like I say, it's just an honoring thing, and then see who comes out to support them. All right, these are the people that we can come back a month later and say, would you also like to support the film that we're going to make? You saw some of the people that were there helping us. We're working on this. Do you guys want to be a part of that later? And so that's one thing. You have to meet and build a little bit of a relationship first, and then you can start to raise money from them. And at that point, you know who to go talk to as well, because you end up spending a lot of time with people when you put the dinner together, because they're giving speeches and they're talking about how they're connected, and they're telling you who else is connected, and you're bringing that together, and you're building a little bit of an event together to showcase what they're doing. And then basically you film it and use some of that in the final film if you wanted to as well. I don't know. So there's lots of things you can do with that. But that's the goal, is to get to meet the right people, and the luminary dinner is one of the best mechanisms for doing that, because everybody wants to honor the people that are doing well, and people, my experience is they don't mind being honored for the work they're doing, because they don't usually get enough credit anyway. They get lots of press, some good, some not, but for the work that they're actually doing, they really like to hear it from time to time. So that kind of helps them out from that point of view.
Yeah, that's helpful. That's good. Is your network of investors, I'm curious just to think through some of the questions I know will come up with various people, is the idea of us not shooting in Texas. Like, how important is it for them to be investing in Texas, if you will?
Not really.
Okay.
I mean, Texas used to be a real hot spot for films, but then the tax credits went down to 20 and then 17, and you're not going to compete against Georgia, New Mexico, and one point Michigan was like 44%. You're just not going to compete against that. So the films kind of went away, and people just said, well, that's fine. We have other business here, and off they went. I think it's really more about people that are in the faith-based world that want to support that group and those values. And there's plenty of those here in Texas for sure. And there may be other locations around the country that, Nashville or whatever, where there's a good support for the family that it would make sense to do a dinner there. I could see one in Oklahoma. I could see one in Dallas. I could see one in different places around the area. Austin, although it's not as big as Dallas, still drew a pretty good group for the faith-based group that we put together the other day. So you just depends upon the network and who we're doing. But like I say, there's a lot of people that know what they're doing and want to support that. So that's the research I would do, is where are the centers of interest, and run 4 or 5 luminary dinners for them and something like that. And one of the values is you get to know more about them, and you'll get a lot of background research and a lot of relationship building. A lot goes on when you do those dinners. So you build that network of supporters for it. And I think most of these films are in that category. They're not just pure commercial. There's a lot of people supporting the values side of it. That's where you spend most of your time, is hanging out with those guys. And then they know more people as well that they can bring in on it. And then, as long as it's not, we don't want to lose money, but we don't have to make a huge amount either, because we're getting the story, we're getting the message out there. We're getting the story out there is the angle.
Yeah, certainly. I know we're coming up on our time, so I want to be respectful of that, but I am curious to your point about you want to build these relationships before you're just asking for people to come on board. Do you have any events coming up in the area that individuals are gathering that are interested in this type of stuff, that just for me to attend and meet people and say hi, and without a direct ask yet?
Well, we do this. We do roadshow events. We're in Austin February 5th at the Oracle facility with our standard roadshow. You're welcome to come out to that and see it. As an investor, there's no cost. We can get you in and you can see what it looks like. For the one we did for the faith-based group, we also did Oracle, but it was in the area where they served a dinner and people came and networked and so forth. And so we had some photos to show you what that looks like as well. And then they handed out information about the work that the group was doing. They had cards for filling out for interest. If you're interested in being on our list and want to hear more about what we're doing, fill it out here for new people that, we didn't know. People were inviting others to come to it. You had to have a register. So with facility, they had to know who was coming. But the idea was you can start to put together something like that as well. If you need help with that, we can help with that too. But it's something we've done quite a bit of in the past, because it's relationship building, and that's one thing people don't always get about startup funding, for example, is there's a relation. You have to build a relationship as a part of that process. Now, $500 clicks off the credit card, and you don't probably need that, but $50K investment you certainly do, and that's where we spend all our day is building that relationship. So it goes in that same angle as well. But we can talk more about that. If you have some more thoughts, we can jump on a call and talk about what, if we want to put one together, where would we put it together and who would we invite, and start to figure out what that might look like.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be great. Well, and I more so meant just if you were hosting something that I could just to build those relationships, because I agree. I mean, that's one thing I've certainly learned over the years is relationships have pretty much moved the needle for everything that I've been able to pull off. And so the more that can happen beforehand, I think would be beneficial.
Yeah. So you might want to come to the one in Austin on February 5th, and let's see what we can do there.
Yeah, great. Well, and also if we can make the time, we start production in January for this kids show. You should come out to the studio one day when you have availability just to see the production, and we can host you there a little bit and show you around the studio.
Okay. That sounds good.
I'll reach out and we can schedule that.
Okay. Well, good. Well, appreciate you taking time. Thanks so much. And we'll go forward from there.
Yeah. Thanks all. Talk soon.
Investor Connect helps investors interested in startup funding. In this podcast series, experienced investors share their experience and advice. You can learn more at investorconnect.org. Paul T. Martin is the director of Investor Connect, which is a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to the education of investors for early-stage funding. All opinions expressed by Hall and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of Investor Connect. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions.